friends. Welcome back. And so if you listened to last week, we were talking about how to keep your schedule full, especially with the upcoming summer months, especially when you're going to start to get patients that, they want to skip town for the sunny days, or, they call you up and say, hey, my child's not feeling well today. But what you really know is that they're calling out sick so they can go to the beach on that day, and they want to ditch their dental appointments. I know what's happening. I've been in dentistry long enough to know that. But we have to kind of prepare for that, right? And so last week I talked about 3 reports. Actually, I talked about 4 reports in my last podcast last week. And one of the reports that we talked about was the unscheduled list. And I wanted to dive in a little bit deeper into that list because it seems to be the one that everybody wants to ignore. And, what I hear from a lot of you is, Dayna, we just don't have time to work it. We have so many other things that we're doing. We're getting emails all day. The phones are ringing off the hook. And, to be perfectly honest, we really don't have anywhere to put patients anyway. So we're just not going to work that report. And so what I say to all of you is, well, shame on you, because because this is such a great resource for you. And okay, there's a lot of reasons why you want to use this report. One reason is, okay, so I was on a call today with doing a coaching call with a doctor and his office manager. And it was, we were talking about, they were bringing on a new associate, and we were talking about how to prepare for that and what reports they were going to be looking at. And kind of towards the end of the call, the doctor's asking, is there anything else that you want to bring up in our call today? Well, whenever we do coaching calls, they're always sharing their screen so we can go through different things on their software. And one thing that I noticed while we were sharing screen is I could see how many appointments were sitting on the pin board. I mean, their pin board looked like a crowded parking lot. And I'm like, okay, so let's talk about the pin board for a second. And the office manager she just started cracking up. She's like, yeah, I just don't know what to do about all those appointments that are on the pin board. And I go, well, let's talk about it. And I see this a lot. I see where, you put appointments on the pin board because you want to get them off the schedule because patients have canceled or patients no-showed, or you just want to move them off to the side because the patient is no longer on your appointment book. So you move them over to the pin board. Well, then the pin board just gets so crowded. And, the hygienists, they're setting complete, they're posting their appointments, and they're scheduling their patients for their next visit, and they're using the pin board. And so if the pin board is this, crowded parking lot, your hygienists don't have anywhere to park their appointments and find them when they're scheduling patients back in the treatment room. So it's really important that we keep the pin board clean. And, we have to keep room for, we just have to keep it clean. And so my rule around the pin board is that unless the patient is standing in front of you scheduling their next appointment, or unless you're on the phone with the patient scheduling their next appointment, then the appointment gets off the pin board. Then you take the appointment off the pin board. So my rule is that if you've pin boarded the appointment, so you're actively scheduling the patient, and the patient walks out the door, or the patient hangs up the phone and they don't schedule, then I have to move them off the pin board. That's my rule. Now, you can take my rule and use it, or, you could say, Dayna, you're crazy. I love my pin board. I'm going to keep it the way it is. But, if you want to keep a clean pin board, then you want to move that appointment off the pin board. So you would want to wait, we'll call it, to the unscheduled list. The unscheduled list is this beautiful holding bucket. It's kind of like going to the airport and you have a parking lot that you can sit in for, a couple weeks or whatever. Now, when you move appointments to the unscheduled list, now you have a place where you can manage them, and those appointments don't get in anybody's way. And you can make follow-up contacts. You can wait will call appointments. So another thing I love using the unscheduled list for is for patients that need something now. So let's say that you have a patient that comes in today for a crown prep or an impression for a night guard, or maybe they're going to do a athletic splint, an athletic guard, or something that has to go to the lab, or you have to actually make it in your own in-house lab, and the patient has to come back for a second appointment. So what I love to do, and if the patient doesn't schedule, so maybe you say, well, we'll just call you when it's done. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't have that great of a memory. I forget things all the time. So it's possible that that patient could get forgotten. So what you can do is you can actually build the delivery appointment. And if you're using the lab case manager, you can build the lab case, attach the appointment to the delivery appointment, and then we'll call it to the unscheduled list. And then it sits on the unscheduled list. So if you're actively working your unscheduled list, you're going to see those appointments of those wait will call appointments of those patients that need to come in for a follow-up appointment so they don't get forgotten. I mean, how many times do you have, patients that go months without getting their crown seated, or, they forget about their retainers or whatever it might be. I know that used to happen in my office. So, using the lab case manager and the unscheduled list together for those patients that don't schedule the delivery appointment, it just works fantastic. It's like this, just this holding bucket for these patient appointments so they don't get lost, they don't get forgotten. And I just love it. It's such a great resource. It's such a great tool. So I want you to get rid of all those preconceived notions about the unscheduled list, that it's a waste of time, it's too long, I don't like it, nobody uses it. So try it out. I want you to try it out for 30 days and tell me how it's working. Okay. So in 30 days, what I want you to do is either send me a DM on any of our social media channels. It's at MyNavoni. DM us at any of our social media channels, or shoot me an email. Okay. Dayna@navoni.com. Send me an email. I want to hear how it's working better for you. Okay. So here's a couple more rules about the unscheduled list. Okay. So as soon as we come back from our break, I'll tell you about my other rules around the unscheduled list. All right. Welcome back. So my other rules around the unscheduled list is that a patient would only sit on the unscheduled list for up to 3 months. Okay. This is how you will keep your unscheduled list clean, up to date, current. Okay. So if you're working it on a regular basis, when I say regular basis, I mean every week. Every week you are at least maybe a couple times a week. Maybe Tuesdays and Thursdays are your unscheduled list day, and you make 5 calls on Tuesday and 5 calls on Thursday. So you make 10 calls a week to the unscheduled list. That is not too much to ask. Don't you think? That's not too much to ask. So let's say that if you're working this list on a regular basis, following up with patients that are unscheduled, if you do that and you open your office journal, because if you've been working around me long enough, you know how much I love the office journal for making your contact notes. Okay. So let's say that you're making your 5 calls for today. You open up the office journal and you see that, okay, this patient has been on the unscheduled list for 2 months. I see that there's 2 other calls. 2 other people on my team have made calls to this patient about the same appointment. This is my 3rd call. And now I'm going to make my 3rd call on the office journal. Now I would probably delete that appointment off of the unscheduled list. Okay. So that way, then the patient, if it's for a hygiene visit that they missed a couple months ago, they will show back up again on your continuing care list. Okay. We talked about the continuing care list last week. Now they'll show up on the continuing care list. If it was for a restorative appointment, let's say that they were scheduled for, say, a couple fillings. They missed their appointment for one reason or another. They ended up on the unscheduled list. It was for a couple fillings. And now you're making your third contact to them you're making your note on the office journal. And then I would delete the appointment off the unscheduled list. So if it was for restorative, they will show up on your treatment manager. Remember, mining for gold. Remember we talked about that last week. Okay. So they'll show up on the treatment manager because it's unscheduled treatment. Okay. So don't worry about losing people if you delete the appointment off the unscheduled list. Don't worry about losing them. They'll show up on another list. Okay. Trust me. I know what I'm talking about here. So I've been doing this for 17 years. So don't worry. And then, if you keep it clean, now the patients that are on there, like the wait will call patients that you are maybe waiting to get them in for their crown delivery or their night guard, delivery, then you probably don't want to delete them off your unscheduled list because maybe they're a snowbird and they're not in town right now, or maybe they are, maybe they're on an extended family trip or something. So, you don't want to delete anything off the unscheduled list where you actually really have to get them in. So, that make sure that you are using your best judgment for each appointment. But those are my rules around the unscheduled list. So let's clean up the pin board. Okay. And let's really make the unscheduled list a really good resource for you for following up with patients that are unscheduled, that need to come back for an appointment. And you can really tackle your schedule, make sure that it's full and productive. And patients will really appreciate when you follow back up with them because they know that you care. You care about them. Now, I know that it might be frustrating that the patient missed their appointment and it's frustrating for you. And you're like, I'm not calling them back. They no-showed on me. Well, you just don't know why they no-showed until you talk to them. Okay. So I always say, give patients the benefit of the doubt until you actually have a conversation and really try and get to the root problem of why did they miss their appointment. If you just let it be like you are making assumptions about why they missed it, then you might really never get to the root cause. So, you might want to think about asking the patient, hey, I want to reschedule this appointment for you, but tell me, what could I do differently to help you keep this appointment next time? Is there any reason why you would miss this appointment in the future? So, maybe try and get to the root cause. Maybe there's fear. Maybe there's a money issue. Maybe you need to talk to them about financing. And then you can maybe bring up the fact that you have care credit available that would be maybe 0 interest for 12 months or whatever that might be. Maybe it's a situation where, they've had a bad experience in dentistry before in their past, So, trying to get to the root problem or the root cause of why they're missing an appointment is always a good way to show your patients that you care. And that patients keeping their oral health visits is good for their health. Okay. Hygiene is good for their health. Getting the decay out of their mouth is good for their health. So I want you to remember that you are in dentistry because you are an oral health provider. Okay. So remember why we do this every single day. And so that way, if you know your why am I in dentistry? Then reaching back out to patients that miss appointments will not be a burden for you, but it will be a reminder that you know that you are improving this patient's health. So I'm going to leave you with that. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And I look forward to watching your journey of becoming a high-performing dental team.